One of the questions that often comes up in parenting is how to deal with discipline, how to deal with boundaries, how to deal with freedom. Because we want to see our kids grow and flourish and not be stifled in their freedom, in their creativity, in their exploration of this world. And yet we also need to figure out how to put boundaries in place to keep them safe, to keep them understanding the world that they live in. And actually, when it comes to parenting, like any form of leadership, one of the things that we have to understand is our children will be asking themselves three questions about us as parents. Just as in any leadership role, these are questions that people ask of the person who seeks to lead them. And the first question they ask is does this leader, does this parent love me? Do they have my best interests at heart, or are they just out to feather their own nest, to look after themselves, and they will use me to achieve whatever they want to achieve? Or does this leader, does this parent actually love me and care for me and have my best interests at heart? The second thing they're asking is, does this leader, does this parent actually have the ability to help? Do they have the experience? Do they have the skills? Do they have the know-how to help me? Are they effective as a leader? Are they a parent that we can go to with confidence to know that they can help? But there's also a third one, and it's a question asked of every leader and every parent. And the question that children are asking is, do they understand me? Not just do they love me, are they able to help, but do they understand me? Is there a connection between us where they understand who I am and how I flourish and how I thrive? Do they get me? And actually, when it comes to parenting, this is one where sometimes children don't have the confidence that their parents get them. This is particularly seen in the teenage years. I used to be a youth worker. I used to also be a secondary school teacher. I've worked a lot with teenagers. And when teenagers get to that stage in life, often it's not that they doubt that their parents love them. They know their parents love them. The question is, do their parents understand them? And sometimes that's where distance can come in, and the parents are thinking, I've made it clear that I love them. Why is this tension? Where is this distancing coming from? But they're not actually asking the question, not worried about the answer of, do my parents love me? What they're not convinced of is, do my parents understand me? And one of the things that we want to think about when it comes to discipline, that ability to connect, that ability to feel understood, to convince our children that they are understood by us is so important when it comes to discipline. And what I'd like us to think about is this idea of boundaries. Are boundaries a good thing? Are they a bad thing? Do they provide structure, or actually do they stifle creativity and exploration? And there's a great quote by J.K. Chesterton, and it says this. It says, "Don't ever take a fence down until you know the reason it was put up." Don't ever take a fence down until you know the reason that it was put up. And sometimes the boundaries that we put in a child's life, if the child doesn't feel understood, if the child doesn't feel that they've connected with their parents, that their parents understand them, and if the children don't understand why these boundaries are being put up, then the boundary can feel like a prison. And actually they grow to hate the boundaries, they grow to hate the rules, they grow to hate the prison that they have put in. These are rules to keep me at bay. And often children have experienced those sort of boundaries that are there. Do as I say, and the child is left feeling unconnected, misunderstood, and these boundaries feel like a prison. And so there's lots of parenting approaches today that would say, right, let's get rid of the boundaries, because in lots of cases they have stifled creativity and growth and expression and exploration. But actually there's more than two options. It isn't just have boundaries that are a prison or have no boundaries. There's a third option. A few months ago, we found a little kitten on the side of the road. It had been abandoned. It was tiny. It was hardly old enough to survive. It had been lying in the grass for a few days on the side of the road, and so I 3 daughters. We took it in, and one day, me and the girls we built this big cat hutch for it, and locked the door and let it sleep in there nice and safe and sound, and put its food in there. And as we were building the hutch, one of my daughters said to me, why are we going to push this kitten into this hutch? Why not let it run free? And so I asked her, does it feel like we're putting the kitten in prison? And she said, yeah, it does. Why not let it run free? And so I said, when you're at school and me and your mummy are at work, what happens if it walks down to the main road? So it could get hit by a car. I said, yeah, or those other big cats that come around our garden, and those dogs that actually have sneaked in from time to time. What happens if while we're away, the kitten is there and one of those big cats attacks it, or those big dogs come and take its food, or what if at night time when it's lashing with rain and the kitten it doesn't know where to sleep, and she understood actually this garden, this world is full of dangers for this kitten, and actually the hutch that we're making isn't a prison, it's a safety zone, that it protects it from the road, protects it from the other cats and the dogs and the weather that comes at night time. And what I said is, as the kitten gets old and knows how to handle the road and is big enough and bad enough to take care of itself with other cats, and knows that inside the hutch there's a lovely bed, what we can do is we can cut a hole in the door and let it come and go as it pleases. It doesn't have to wait for us to open the big door. It can just have this little hole where it comes and goes. But while it is young, it needs this boundary, it needs this hutch. And then we talked about how the rules that mummy and daddy give to them as girls, are they a prison or are they a safety zone? Are they a prison where we want to stop them having fun and stop them exploring and stop them being creative? Or are the rules a safety zone where while they are young, they can explore in safety, and as they get older, their freedom increases and increases? And one of the things that we have to understand is there aren't just two options to boundaries. Yes, boundaries can be a prison, particularly if the boundaries and the rules don't connect with the children, if the children don't feel understood. But the only solution isn't get rid of them entirely. Actually, is to create a safety zone where the children understand that these rules, these boundaries, are here for their good. And as they grow older and learn things, those boundaries will expand and expand and expand to give them freedom. Now, one of the things that has been researched to death is the impact that consistent boundaries have on children. And actually the evidence is overwhelming that boundaries that connect with the children and are consistent are absolutely key to children flourishing and learning to explore and learning to be creative, And actually not having boundaries or having inconsistent boundaries actually does child development serious damage. And the picture is a bit like this: of if you imagine these boundaries being like a fence. What happens is when a child is in that environment, what they will do is they will go around and they will test all the boundaries and they will try and get through them and they will try and knock them over and they will shake the fence to see, is it secure, is it solid? But once they've done a few laps and they've checked that the boundaries are solid, what they then do is they settle down to explore and experiment and be creative in this safety zone. Actually, that is the place where development happens. And depending on their character, depending on their dispositions, every now and again they'll get up and they'll shake the fence and they'll make sure that it's still solid, still secure. But then they get back down again and they explore and they are creative and they experiment. And that is where healthy development happens. But picture the other scenario where the child gets into this environment and they shake the fence and they go round, and actually there's gaps in the fence, and when they do a lap, where the fence was, it's now moved back here, and where the fence was over here, it's now moved here. And every time they go round, they're either able to knock over the fence or the fence is moved. Do you know what happens to that child? They spend their childhood circulating, going round and round the boundary, and they will not stop until the boundary is secure. And so if the boundaries are inconsistent, where they can either knock them over or one day they were here but now they're here, what happens is the child will continue to circle and they will spend their life pushing the boundaries, getting in trouble, fighting against authorities. But the one thing they do not do is come back to settle, to experiment and explore and be creative and use the freedom that they have to develop. That actually a lot of poor child development revolves around the lack of consistent boundaries that they had. And there's two principles I want us to get absolutely clear from this course on Parenting That Connects. Two principles that make such a difference. Number one, our voice matters. Our voice matters, and as parents. And number two, discipline is not about severity. It's about connection and consistency. Discipline is not about severity. It's not like if I really discipline them hard, then they'll grow and flourish. It's not about severity. It's about connection and consistency. Where if I can connect with my children, they understand that the boundaries are not a prison. They're a safety zone for them to thrive and flourish. But those boundaries must be consistent. Because it's only when they've done a few laps, that's when they sit down to develop and grow and flourish. Once they know that they are safe, once they know that the boundaries are consistent. Two principles I want us to get crystal clear. Number one, our voice matters. And number two, discipline is not about severity. It's about connection and consistency.